some people are very in between about like whether they want to be, well, not picked on, but like whether they like the kind of the question answer things. So I think we kind of try and not pick on people because I don't think people like that as much. So if anybody has any suggestions for what they think poaching is, you can either say it or write it in the chat. And I have some points written down. Obviously, Phoebe, if you have any extra stuff, feel free to add.
Mm.
Okay, we'll speed on. What is poaching? So people probably know, maybe if you've heard of poaching before, you generally know what it is. But for me, poaching is recognizing when your player, so the person that you've been assigned to when you're playing, so the person you line up opposite at the start of the point, is not a threat, and then taking that opportunity to get in the way of something which is a threat and put pressure either on the disc or, well, normally on the disc or like another person, and get aggressive whilst you do it. So it sounds pretty like, I don't know, high stakes, but being aggressive whilst you're poaching, not as in like punching people, but like being like really in the way, and really getting in the right space, and doing it all the time is really important. Um, so, Phoebe, do you have anything else you want?
Um, no, I think that's pretty bang on.
Yeah. Cool. So, when is poaching most effective? Um, I, I was thinking the same thing with you. You just felt nice and didn't say anything. So, poaching is most effective. Is when you're marking a dump. So, if you have your stack of people upfield who would be your cutters, and then you've got kind of your people at the back who are like your handlers, and if you're the if you're marking someone who's one of those handlers and they're kind of out the way a bit, and there could be three dumps if you're playing horizontal stack, where if you're like the furthest away one, poaching out to get in the way of the cutters so that the throws can't go upfield is always a good idea. Well, some of the time it's a good idea. When your player is clearing out, so when you don't think your player is a threat, so they've done their cut, they didn't get it, and they've started clearing out, you can then take that opportunity to get in the way of kind of the open lane. And when the other team is in a weak pitch space. So what I mean by weak pitch space is narrow the pitch where the other team has less space to play in. So this could be on the sideline or near an end zone. So if they're on the sideline, obviously half the space they have is off the pitch and therefore they can't use it, which makes it a lot more effective if you have kind of a poach getting in the way. If you're in the middle of the pitch, poaching is really tricky and most of the time doesn't work, because there's um, there's like two sides of the pitch which they can use to break the poach and get around it, and therefore middle of the pitch poaching is normally just someone being lazy. But yes, cool. So I don't know why I put these on for so long. I'm handing over to Phoebe now, to do some
Okay.
examples. So
Yeah. So maybe if we'll just play the whole clip through once, and then if anyone, so in this first clip, there's two poachers. So if anyone just wants to like say a bit about either like why it was a good example of poaching, and like what like the team benefited from, or if you thought they could have done something better. So, yeah, and then I'll go through it after.
yeah, this is at 10:10 for anybody who's watching.
110.
1:10. Yep. Numbers.
Australia's Lachlan Wise, 11 goals and 10 assists, doing a little bit of everything for the Aussies.
The Aussies come out with a spread offense, trying to put their offense wide across the field and find different angles to attack.
And this is Rogacki with Hatchet nearby. All week long, the two teams.
Okay. Anyone have any comments? If you can either say something, or if you'd rather, you can just type stuff in the chat.
Phoebe, I didn't see it. Can we play it again?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Play it in slow-mo. The people who, I think in this one, if you look for black number 8, so the USA player, number 8, and then I couldn't see the number of the other USA player, but there's a dude with a headband on who's also wearing black kit. Both of those dudes do a little bit of poaching off. Slow motion. Whoa. It's quite slow. Oh.
Okay. Dan says something and then takes it back. Okay, dump poach was the lazy one. Yeah. So, if we wanna, maybe if we just like play and then pause at the bit where you can see the first guy poaching.
Australia's Lachlan, 11 goals and 10 assists, doing a little bit of everything for the Aussies.
The Aussies come out with a spread offense, trying to put their offense wide across.
Yeah, so you can see here. So this player here poaches off. But yeah, I agree. So he poaches off, but he doesn't really actively commit to like being aggressive with his poach. So you can see there's a Australia player who's turning to come under. But so he's poached off the third handler, but isn't actually like actively moving to get in the way of this third player. So he's sort of ended up not really stopping either option. You can see the Australian player just comes and runs under and gets it quite easily, and then his player is completely open for the continuation. So yeah, I agree. It's a good option because he was marking the third handler, and that throw is unlikely to go off straight away because there's the second handler in the middle. But I don't think it was particularly well executed. And also, as soon as that throw goes, he should have been running under to stop the continuation. Like he sort of starts running under once the throw is already gone. Yeah. You just watch that again.
Yeah, this is real lazy.
Yeah. So you sort of have to be very aware of like when it's good to poach and when you need to be paying attention and getting back to your player. Yeah. And then we also see there's a second poach. I don't remember where it is. Oh, this guy. So you can see just before that, a player went deep with his mark. This guy, yeah. So and there's a tons of separation, and you can see the thrower looks to throw the forehand, like a forehand hut. So this guy, he perceives that as the bigger threat because the throw to his mark at the moment is sort of a breakthrough, and it's kind of a bit awkward to throw. So he decides to stop the bigger threat. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
a bit tricky to see. I think also There's a girl who just comes off screen. I think this girl might have also been cutting it as well. So he kind of flashes out in the lane for a little bit because he realises his player isn't really doing much.
Yeah.
And this throw is pretty hard. It gets
Yeah.
missed, but he still kind of does quite a good job to get back onto it.
For sure. Cool. So, yeah, we'll just watch this one again if anyone has any. I would watch this one. Everyone has any comments, put them in the chat or turn on your mic.
If you look out for number 8, I think it's black number 8. Yeah, must be number 8 again. What a laser. Best player on the Aussie team right there. Actually, I can put the sound on. They talk about him quite a lot. Rodaki. I can't say his name. Try replay it.
Yeah.
And Australia just does not have the luxury of that same depth. Vivian Stetner. Ragaki makes the tough grab with Hatchet on his back. There's a launch, a couple steps, and the Aussies score.
Best player outside the US, according to Phoebe.
The gecko.
Except Natsuno.
Australia just does not.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments on the actual poach?
See if we go to the poach moment. I mean, kind of now.
That's okay. Non-constructive comments are allowed as well. Okay. Yeah. So this poach again, it's on the third handler, which is a very common time for people to poach off. So I think this was a good look because it does stop. There's the Aussie player who's currently running off the screen on the right. He cuts under, and the poach does stop it like pretty well. You can see, yeah, he runs it, and then there's like no space for him to really run onto, so he ends up just running deep. The only thing I say is, so at that point we just watched, you can see the Aussie player runs under, and number 8 completely turns his hips. So the number 8 who's poaching completely turns his hips, like at this point, to chase after this person. And we've talked about a bit before about like knowing like where your defender's hips are pointing, because at this point he's not in a position really to stop anything that's going to his player. He can't even see what's going on behind him. He can't see where the disc is going. But also there's like another Australian player coming under, and if he was facing the disc, it would be very easy for him to just sidestep to block that cut. I mean, it doesn't end up going, but at this point he's sort of a bit turned himself around, and he has to fully 180 and run back to his player. This is a bit of a dodgy throw. But yeah, so I think a good look, but maybe execution wise it could have been a bit better, because you, as a poach, you always want to be fully aware where the threat is and where like the disc could be going, so you never really want to completely turn your back on the disc and your mark.
Yeah, he's also not really covering very much. I can't really see off screen, but it doesn't look like there's anybody really coming under at this point.
Yeah.
Cover this person. She could have probably kept on going. She kind of like pulls out of her cut.
Yeah, she definitely could, I reckon.
And then like the gecko, or I can't say its actual name, comes back under and gets the disc. So he didn't cover that. I suppose it's quite a short throw, which is quite a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, also it was quite a bit of a dodgy catch. Like, it wasn't the easiest throw in the world.
Yep.
But yeah, that was so nice.
It was a very, very good. Yeah, if you count how long this person has the disc here, I mean, we're slowed down a little bit, but she has the disc for a very long time, which is kind of due to kind of these two also working together, but some half good poaching. If he was a little bit more committed, he could have closed everything down.
For sure.
Woo, what a score!
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so should we play this one through twice?
After Robin Wiseman got injured, she has really played well. A left-handed shot. Lachlan Wise won't have a chance.
Put in that D.
El Salam rising up.
Okay, so now this is when the poach is coming.
But a tremendous response. Chris Calaviotis converts it into a score for Australia.
Tremendous response. There's quite a lot of pre-stuff.
A left-handed shot. Lachlan Wise won't have a chance. El Salam rising up. But a tremendous response. Chris Calaviotis converts it into a score for Australia.
So, anyone has any things to say? Like, why was it a good or bad time to poach? What was done well, or what could have been done better, if anything?
We'll go to the poach moment.
Okay. Okay, so we can see the Australian player on the left is poaching off of number 15. So that's like again the same situation, where they're poaching off the third handler. So this is quite a good time to poach because basically this throw to number 15 is basically never going to come, especially because the two other defenders are pretty well covering the area in front. But the main thing I want to point out was you can see. Oh, just Dan putting in clips and other things. Yeah, so you can see that the poach is always doing a good job of keeping an eye on both his player, but also importantly the disc, the handler who's got the disc. So he can see as soon as this thrower pivots to throw the throw, he is already running back to stop this throw. So even before his player like puts his hand out to ask for it, he's sprinting back through. And if he didn't have that awareness, there's absolutely no way he would have made it back in time for that D. I mean, it was pretty crazy even so. But yeah. So it's important to, when you're poaching, to not sort of get distracted and be like, oh, what's going on around me? And make sure you always know where's the disc, where's the threat, and what is the player I'm marking doing. And then they go on to score, and it's very nice.
Yeah, big sad for US. I mean, not really big sad there. They were 9-3 up, but
yeah, they won that game, I think 15-6. So yeah,
sad for Australia.
Australia.
But yeah, this is terrible communication as well.
Yeah, for sure.
15, his player should have definitely just like been like, "Don't worry, I'm here."
Yeah.
Like, jogs backwards, which if you're jogging away from a disc, something's going wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, as soon as he kind of realizes that there's nothing really to cover and he's got an opportunity, sprints back full commitment,
Mm-hmm.
and then get someone to lay out in the end zone for him.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Yeah, so this is from a new game. This is like, I don't remember what this is.
So, Toby
yeah.
Mine, the younger
Yes.
of
Do you want me to go back to stuff?
No, we'll just watch it, and if anyone has any comments.
Cool.
So, Toby Mine, the younger of the two Mine brothers on this squad. Big Poach comes early. They take advantage of it with a great swing across the field. Zani up line. So, Toby Mine, the younger of the two Mine brothers on this squad. Big Poach comes early. They take advantage of it with a great swing across the field. Zani up line.
Okay. All people are typing.
I thought that's a pretty great Porsche, personally, Phoebe.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really like that
Yeah.
because he just gets there, stops the option, and then unfortunately, obviously, the dump gets thrown to the guy who was poaching.
Yeah. I agree. I thought it was good because even though his player gets thrown to, they just throw a cross pitch. He stops the more dangerous option. They actually make yards. But yeah, I think also nice by first dump pulling their defender out of the way. Yeah, so I think this is really great play by the offense as well. A really good example of what to do if you are in the situation where you're the third handler and you're being poached off of. So yeah.
I was thinking maybe the person defending the dump could have poached off as well to stop off the swing. Maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
He poaches a little bit, but not enough to stop.
Yeah, so you see, at this point, he sort of has half poached off. So the person marking the middle handler, at this point he's sort of covering the swing, but then he half steps back to the person he's marking, but sort of doesn't massively commit either way. So I think it would have been better if he'd stayed more in the position where he was. So he's stopping the swing. But yeah, so yeah, as Dan said, this was really nice because the middle handler drops off, dragging his defender back, meaning that the furthest away handler is free for this nice cross pitch through.
Yeah, and the guy in the red hat, the middle handler, he's like moving about lots. So if you have a poach situation, making sure that your player kind of thinks you might get it. So he starts moving around, and then his player kind of moves back a little bit because he's like, oh, he's moving. I don't know what he's doing. Therefore, just those 2 steps meant that this throw straight across could go. But yeah, everybody did a good job to kind of then get back to their players after that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Should we watch the next clip?
Time that the Russians get a bit of a dubious turnover, but a turnover nonetheless, and they have a chance to equalize right here.
So Kochkin with the disc. In his own coffin corner, Laffy all over Gasperini. Lays out, picks it up quick to Mine. Now to Tonelli, now to Mitterer. And the Italians say,
Time that the Russians get a bit of a dubious turnover, but a turnover nonetheless, and they have a chance to equalize right here.
So
Kochkin with the disc. In his own coffin corner, Laffy all over Gasperini. Lays out, picks it up quick to Mine. Now to Tonelli, now to Mitterer.
Cool. Anyone have any comments? What was good? What was bad?
I can comment again.
Yeah.
I thought it was very good again. I think like he recognized that there was one player off camera who was really deep, which meant that he could just leave his guy because there's already a defender deep, so that threat isn't there anymore, and he can focus on the under, which he did, and got a block, which is great. But it was like wasn't much risk because the only risk is that he gets the deep and scores, but there's already a defender there. So I thought that was quite good.
Yeah. So this is a kind of example of both poaching when your mark is clearing out, but also when they're cutting into weak space. His clear out going deep. This is really into weak space because there's, as you said, already this other defender here, but also this is quite a hard throw to come off, especially because if you watch the force, he's really committing to stopping the up the line throw. He can also see the defender marking that player has been fooled to going deep, so even if he doesn't get it, they could just switch. So yeah, exactly. This team in white, the whole game, they're really good about being heads up and switching. This is something we'll cover next week. But yeah, so having a bit of faith in your teammates as well allowed him to get this amazing D. Tight marking the dump makes the poach more effective. Yeah, so I'll just go back. Yeah. So yeah, that throw is really hard to come off. Yeah, exactly. So they're like sort of all working together to stop. So this up the line is stopped by the tight marking. Yeah, meaning that he can stop any other cuts into the underspace. Nice.
Just watch it one more time.
Who's two? I don't know which one is number 2.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, so he is poaching off the third handler who is off the screen. He's far, but when they run reset, he gets close. So yeah, as soon as the middle handler runs up the field, he knows that his handler is now the main look for a reset. So he stops poaching and runs back to the person he's marking really quickly, which is really good.
Yeah.
And then they have a nice little score.
Yeah. Great flow.
Great stuff.
Whoa,
Whoa.
it's me. I'm going to talk about the Warwick Bears stuff. Cool. So we have an example here. So if we just watch it through first, and then can.
Under on this! Yeah, break hand, Justine, now out!
Quite a long way away, but the person that we're looking for what Jesse's doing.
Under on this! Yeah, break hand, Justine, now out!
As it's so short, I'll just talk through it. Put it in slow-mo. So we have people who they've just kind of got it deep, so everybody's clearing through, and they're on the sideline, which is obviously a weak space, so good time to poach, unless you're on the dump. Jessie kind of took the opportunity that her player wasn't really getting involved very much, and therefore she could get in the way. Kind of in this moment, her player goes over here, but she's like, well, actually, they're all cutting into this space on the sideline, so I can get in the way. And she kind of keeps her eyes on the disc and then realizes that she should probably go get her player again. And then a way to like break a poach like this, sort of like the type of throw that you can use. So I think outside people always forget that you can do overheads, but you know, if it's not super windy, then actually doing overheads is a really great thing to do. So just throwing it over to the free person, kind of over the poach, means that you can kind of reset the disc and break the poach. But yeah, that was just a short one to start off with. And then she goes, another good thing is she goes, then makes sure that she's recovered and she's got onto the right side to then start stalling again. So if you poach, make sure you speed back to your player again. So we have this one, which is a very obvious kind of poach, but it's an example of it. I speed it up.
Cut now! Yeah, great work, Grace there, great work, now time! Go around now, Grace, now, around this side!
Can anybody tell me, or like type, any good things that the offense does in this situation? And kind of why what they do is good to get.
Yeah, great work, Grace there, great work, now time! Go around now, Grace, now, around this side!
Does anybody know?
Immediately taking the free option.
Yeah. So Phoebe picks up the disc and
yeah, great work, Grace there, great work!
To Val, who's the poached player. And Val, straight away, you can hear that she calls that she's poached. So communicating that you're poached and throwing straight to the free person is a way to like break poachers. And it's quite tricky what they've done. So Birmingham was kind of poached and they're right in the middle of the pitch, which makes it a bit harder. So we don't have any like space which can't really be used because we're in the middle of the pitch, and therefore as the poach you kind of have to cover a lot more. But she is kind of off the dump and making it so that the throw has to go kind of backwards, or at least somewhat round, to kind of reset the disc, which is a good thing.
Cut now! Yeah, great work, Grace there, great work, now time!
Straight away, which is a good way to break the poach. Cool. So we have an example here of how to break a poach, but also why not to poach off the dump on the sideline, which is one of my pet peeves, when people basically don't play hard person defense on the dump on the sideline, and therefore it's really easy for the person to just swing it off the sideline, which is what we don't want to happen. So if we watch the clip and then if we watch it in slow-mo, and if anybody has any observations of maybe stuff that can be changed or anything. An unfortunate throw at the floor. Second poach is nice. he far, but then they run, reset, he gets close. Dan, what do you mean? That doesn't sound like English. That was old.
That was from one of the clips that I did.
Oh, sorry. Old clip. I got a badoop, so I was like, oh, it must be from here. But we'll go through this. So we have we've got Charlie, which is on force on the sideline over here. And we've got Dan, who's poaching off the dump on the sideline, which something that I'm not particularly fond of, just because if you're on the sideline and you poach off the dump, it gives, and it's this situation of like a vert stack and the dump is just basically to the middle of the pitch. It means that you've taken the defensive team, the offensive team. They were on a situation when they're on the sideline, which is a lot harder to like basically do anything. You kind of want to keep them on the sideline, even if they're moving slowly up the pitch. Here, like being on the sideline is really dangerous for them because they don't really have much space, and it makes it a lot harder. So in this situation here, this player could pretty much just throw it straight to this person. This player's like, the place where they are is not great. They're kind of positioning. They should be more horizontal maybe. But it means that they can swing it easy to the middle of the pitch, and then it's really easy to get a breakthrough out, because you can just swing it and then throw to all of these players over here can just run under, which we will see is kind of what happens. So we actually have a cut that comes off, and Dan he's not aggressive enough to get, instead of being straight in the lane because he's too worried about this going, he doesn't cover this one, and then kind of because he's doing in between, he's trying to cover his person as the dump and the person who's cutting, but kind of doesn't do either. So it's a good situation of maybe why not to do it on the sideline, but why you definitely have to be really aggressive when you're poaching. So you either have to commit to getting in the way one situation, or don't do it at all and just play man defense. So in comparison, we're going to cause a turnover. Yeah, true. But yeah, that was an unforced error turnover, which we don't count. So in comparison, we have this, which is just person defense with no poaching on the sideline, and we can see how long it takes the team to kind of move the disc because there's good defense going on, and a proper actual turnover is caused. And so much time that they had to kind of try and reset it, which made that everything becomes a bit more frantic, which means we get a turnover here. So yeah, personally, I don't like it when people poach on the dump on the sideline. Kind of defeats the whole point of having, making it harder on the sideline. We have another one here. We have how to like break the poach again. So if we just watch through it, and if anybody has any comments or why they think this is a good throw or maybe not a good throw. So we go back. Anybody have any tips on how the So if we just go to the still, so this is at 5:20. We've got kind of a poach standing here, and we're quite close to the sideline, so maybe not a good opportunity because it means it's easy swing to the middle of the pitch. Can you poach on the dump if you are forcing sideline, i.e. i.e. side of the pitch to the Dan example? Yeah, it's kind of okay. As long as you make sure that as the force is aware that you're going to poach and therefore can get more rounds. So if we come back to this situation, if Charlie was all the way around to the left, so standing more, ignore this white player here, but all the way around to the left, standing kind of more behind, so that kind of, if we're doing like a zone, an arrowhead zone, and we're trying to cover all the way around to the side, we stand a bit further round, which could be something that Charlie could do, and then Dan can get straight in the way of the straight in the way of the people coming under in the open lane. Definitely, even in that situation, like I don't know. personally, I would still not poach off the dump, just because even if that situation, if the dump throw does go, it might not be that much harder than even if you were just staying tight to them, even if they were forcing the sideline. They're still a free player, and if they were just going to throw it overhead to them, so if Dan was here, he would be so free that if it wasn't at all windy at all, then throwing an overhead would be really on, because there's so much space back here. So maybe in some certain situations, but on the whole, I just wouldn't poach off the dump on the sideline. Kind of, yeah, like blocking the IO. Maybe I'm thinking more of a force deep situation. What do you mean by a force deep situation? As in the downfield players are forcing the players deep, or the force is more around? We'll quickly go through this while Dan is typing. So in this situation, we've got the Cambridge player who it's an alright poach. It's not particularly active, but he does straight away goes and gets Dan, which is good. Being quite reactive about it, which is good. He could have communicated with his. So in this situation, he could have communicated with the downfield players. So for some reason, this person is forcing flick, but the downfield players are on the other side, on the left side of them. So something's gone wrong there. So if it was these players were on the other side, then you would kind of really help, and we'll see in the next clip where they do actually do this. So making sure that you're working together with the person as you're poaching, working together here, and also the people downfield. So communicating about that, but away to the break here, a nice throw all the way around to the open side, leading on to downfield. He could have also used Dan, who was very free back here, but he saw that Carver saw that he could throw it all the way around, which is cool. So this is what I was talking about, where you have an example of kind of the poach and the downfield defenders working together. We'll just take a look through it, and if anybody has any comments. Very sad drop from Henry. So we've got a poach going on here, and we've got kind of good defense from the front of stack, which meant that the poach and the front of stack kind of work together. That means that Sid was kind of marked out the whole time. And he also reacted really quickly to get back to Dan. So you saw this, and he quickly crossed. Good movement. So yeah. So now for the fun time. You can critique me on doing some very bad poaching. So we're going to watch the two of these clips, and if anybody has any thoughts on from what we've learned in this session, how you think I could do my poaching better, because it's not very good. Everyone's being lazy with poaching, but
yeah, not too deep, guys. Yeah, Ruby! Yeah, put.
And the person with the blonde hair. Number 11.
Yellow.
Is that the first clip?
Hannah, did you just assume they super it deep?
One. Lovely task. 3. Out. Out. 5. Right hand. Yeah, Rosie.
And the second clip. I can watch them again.
Yeah, Ruby. Yeah, put. Yeah. Yellow. Half force, Trish. 1. Lovely task. 3. Out. 5. Right hand. Yeah, Rosie.
Anybody have any pointers? I mean, I know what I should have done.
Yeah, Ruby.
At least when I'm lazy and stand in the open lane, I shout at the force to go no around, so they can do my job for me.
So if we look at this first one,
Yeah, put. Yeah.
so I cover my person's cut, and then I realise that probably I could cover the next person, but I don't commit to it. I'll just hang about and don't really do anything with well. So this is a terrible example of poaching. I should either be running with my player to keep going, or cover completely. If I cover completely, then probably this they wouldn't go. Instead, I'm like, oh, I should probably go and catch my player up, and therefore turn around, play. But if I just committed to it and got in the way, it would have been an actual good option. Whereas I just kind of stayed around for a second and then went out the way, putting my team into a false sense of security, which is awesome.
Half force, Trish. 1. Lovely task. 3. Out. 5. Right hand.
Similarly in this clip, if we go back, so I cover my person up the line, and then I'm like, oh, I could kind of get in the way there. That would be kind of helpful. And then I like, well, maybe not, and get out the way. Which meant that I kind of, yes, again, put my team into a false sense of security that I was kind of going to help them in that situation, which means that they can kind of stand more deep with their players to cover like any deep shots. But instead, I kind of lazily move out the way instead, which is never good. So I could have either stayed in this position and been like super aggressive, just getting right in the way of the force here, and told Jenny to move round to the right maybe a little bit. But it is a situation where my player was going right the way back to dump, and so personally I should have just stayed directly on this player and just stay tight to them, so that this isn't an easy option round the back, which it could have been if this wasn't free. So yeah, there's some just pointers on what I'm doing. Should we go back to that clip? Dan has a comment. So this defender could have switched on to Henry then, if we look at the clip. Yeah, so definitely. We'll look at switches more next week, but this is definitely a situation where we could have had a switch happening. So in this situation, we see Henry's going in this direction. We have a defender on his right and his defender who's trailing him. If slightly before this, let's see if I can get it. Slightly before this, there's so much space here for this defender to turn round and cover. And it would have meant that Henry would have not been free because he would be covered. yeah, he does half think about poaching and getting in the way, but kind of just like doesn't really do it. So yeah. Main things to take away: you can't be lazy. You have to poach really aggressively or not at all. So all the situations where we've seen like not as good poaching, even at the start when we see the high level stuff, like for number 8 at the start where he was like half getting in the way, but he was kind of just being lazy, or like the bit at the end where I was definitely just being lazy and like half poaching and not doing it well at all. So you need to poach aggressively or just don't do it at all and stay tight to your player. And then staying heads up. So being really heads up about what your player is doing and what the disc is doing means that you can poach like really well. And also staying heads up if you have the other team who are poaching on you. So the example of Val and Phoebe, where they were really heads up about telling them that there was a poach and therefore getting the disc moving. Or like back to the Italian team, where there was the Real 5 was doing like a poach on them, and they were really heads up about kind of moving their dump back a little bit so that they could use that long shot across the field. But cool. Does anybody have any other additions about any of the clips? No? Cool. We just have some final announcements, I suppose. Tomorrow is our first interactive session. It's meant to be nice weather tomorrow, which is good. But we have an interactive session 12 to 2. If you don't have a partner and would like one, all of the sessions should be able to be will be able to be done alone. We're going to try and make them so they are mainly based about people alone, because we realise that more people at home, maybe alone, but they're still definitely applicable for 2 people, and obviously doing it with another person can be a bit funner in some situations. If you go into Spawn, there's a link in the event where you can fill in a Google form to get somebody to throw with you and like continuously do it, so for the next sessions to come, or just message me or any of the coaches, and we can set you up with someone. But yeah, see you on here. We were going to have a Discord call, but you don't have to join it if you don't want. There will be videos and the link to the Sheets document, which will go through all the details as well. But I'll be talking through some of them, and just generally saying why we're doing different things, and explaining it like quickly before we go out and do the session. So yeah, hope everybody enjoyed the first one. It was a general kind of introduction to poaching, and yeah, shall see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.